Thank you for viewing the San Francisco Planning Department's scoping meeting presentation for the Ocean Beach Climate Change Adaptation Project. The Planning Department is responsible for conducting California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, review for all projects in San Francisco. This scoping meeting is an early step in the CEQA review process for the project. This step notifies the public that the Planning Department is preparing an Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, and that we welcome your comments concerning the project's environmental effects by October 9th, 2020. As a brief overview, the Ocean Beach Climate Change Adaptation Project is needed to address shoreline erosion, severe coastal storm, wave hazards, and sea level rise, which threaten city infrastructure, coastal access and recreational facilities, and public safety. The project is a collaborative, multi-agency initiative involving the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, or SFPUC, San Francisco Recreation and Parks Department, San Francisco Public Works, San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, the Federal Highway Administration, and the National Park Service. My name is Julie Moore, and I am an environmental planner with the San Francisco Planning Department. I am the coordinator of the EIR for this project. I will begin with an overview of the CEQA process. Then I will turn it over to Anna Roche from the SFPUC, who will describe the background and need for the project, the engineering design, and project features. Then Monica Scott from Rec and Park will describe the concept plans for the recreational and coastal access features, such as the trail, parking, and restroom, and the Rec and Park outreach process. More detail is available in the NOP. I'll then return to address the environmental review schedule and how you can participate. The Planning Department leads the CEQA review process for city projects in compliance with state law or statute, state guidelines, and local requirements. Here, the Planning Department is preparing an Environmental Impact Report, or EIR, for the proposed project. The purpose of CEQA is to inform decision makers and the public of the project's environmental effects, to engage the public in the environmental review process, to disclose potential project impacts on the environment, and to avoid or reduce potential environmental impacts with mitigation measures or alternatives. The EIR is prepared for a project prior to any final decision regarding whether or not to approve the project. The EIR, including an associated initial study, will describe the existing environment at the project site and vicinity for each of the topics shown here, such as air quality, noise, biological resources, and transportation and circulation. The EIR will then analyze the project's impacts to the existing environment and cumulative conditions. Cumulative conditions are the combined effects on the environment, assuming adoption of this project and other reasonably foreseeable projects in the vicinity. At the beginning, I mentioned that the National Park Service and Federal Highway Administration are also partners in this project. The shoreline areas are under National Park Service jurisdiction, so they would need to approve certain elements of the project. The Federal Highway Administration is providing funding and helping to design and build a portion of the coastal parking and trail. These federal agencies have their own environmental review process under the National Environmental Policy Act and will conduct separate environmental review in accordance with their own federal and agency guidelines. Before I pass this over to Anna, I will orient you to the project location. As you can see on this slide, the portion of South Ocean Beach stretches from Sloat Boulevard south to the Fort Funston Bluffs. The project area includes the beach and the Great Highway between Sloat and Skyline Boulevards. It may include areas inside the zoo to expand parking capacity. Also, to the north, the project area includes a portion of the beach where excess sand is currently harvested and trucked to South Ocean Beach. This process would continue under the project. So now I'd like to introduce the project manager, Anna Roche of the SFPUC.
Thank you, Julie, for that overview. Hello, everyone. My name is Anna Roche. I am a project manager with the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, the lead agency for this project. The other responsible agencies include Rec and Park, SFMTA, and Public Works. First, I want to say thank you for your interest in the Ocean Beach Climate Adaptation Project. This is one of San Francisco's first adaptation projects that is moving towards implementation. Ocean Beach is a 3.5-mile stretch of sand along San Francisco's rugged Pacific coast and is one of San Francisco's most important destinations. It is also home to major elements of San Francisco's wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. However, storm-driven waves and sea level rise are contributing to the erosion of coastal bluffs, which is expected to worsen in the coming decades, further threatening coastal infrastructure and causing the beach to narrow. To address erosion and sea level rise threats to this critical wastewater infrastructure, San Francisco participated in the development of the 2012 Ocean Beach Master Plan, which is the source of this graphic. It represents a conceptual idea of how the city could reimagine this stretch of coast while continuing to rely upon the important wastewater infrastructure located here, and it represents the beginning of this project. As I mentioned, this area of Ocean Beach is home to major elements of San Francisco's combined wastewater system. You can see the Oceanside Treatment Plant and one of its entrances in the top photo. The Oceanside watershed, which includes this area of Ocean Beach, is over 9,000 acres and includes the Richmond, Sunset, and Lake Merced districts. The entire area, which represents about 35% of San Francisco, drains towards the Pacific Ocean, further illustrating the criticality of this infrastructure. The Oceanside Treatment Plant and its many associated components were built in the 1980s and 1990s to protect coastal water quality and bring San Francisco into compliance with the Clean Water Act. This combined sewer and stormwater system has reduced the number of discharges into coastal waters by 90%. The lower photo illustrates the coastal conditions that were present at the time the components were completed. These two photos, taken from generally the same vantage point, illustrate how chronic erosion associated with climate-induced sea level rise has rapidly changed the conditions near the Oceanside Treatment Plant. This erosion has and continues to jeopardize the Great Highway, wastewater infrastructure, safe access to the beach, and has exposed fill material used to build the Great Highway. As a result of that erosion, the city and county of San Francisco declared emergencies at least 3 times over a span of 15 years. With each declaration, they placed either large rock, as illustrated in this photo on the lower left corner, or large sandbags to stabilize the area in an effort to prevent further erosion and the stability of the Great Highway. Ultimately, that erosion began to jeopardize not only the Great Highway, but the critical wastewater infrastructure that was built here in the early 90s to protect water quality, which is depicted here in this graphic. The Lake Merced Tunnel, seen here as the blue line, is the most seaward piece of equipment and is the most vulnerable to the ongoing erosion. The Lake Merced Tunnel is a 14-foot diameter pipe under the Great Highway that drains the Lake Merced Basin and transports both stormwater and wastewater to the West Side Pump Station, shown here as the black box on the right side of the screen. In an equal manner, the West Side Transport Box, which is 45 feet deep and 25 feet wide, and is shown here in red, drains the Sunset and Richmond basins to the West Side Pump Station. Once the material arrives at the West Side Pump Station, it is pumped through the West Side Force Main, shown here in yellow, to the Oceanside Treatment Plant, shown within the purple dashed line, where it is processed and treated. The solid material or sludge is removed from the system and the clean water is then discharged to the ocean, 3.5 miles offshore through the 80-foot deep Southwest Ocean Outfall, or SWOO, shown in white. The Lake Merced Tunnel is the most vulnerable, but all of this equipment is at risk. Recognizing these issues, the city worked with Spur to develop the 2012 Ocean Beach Master Plan. It involved a lot of agencies and required a lot of coordination. But because the SFPUC has critical infrastructure at high risk, as shown here in this slide, we are the lead agency for San Francisco. But we understood that we wouldn't be able to complete design and environmental review quickly, which would have left critical infrastructure unprotected for multiple years. So we developed a short-term strategy and sought out and received a multi-year permit from the Coastal Commission to implement those measures. So we have a project with 3 individual phases: short-term improvements, the Army Corps of Engineers sand nourishment, and long-term improvements, which is the project that is being analyzed in the CEOA document that we are discussing today. The first phase involves short-term protection efforts. These efforts are delineated in a multi-year Coastal Commission permit that allows placement of both sand and sandbags to protect the Lake Merced Tunnel until the long-term efforts can be built. Actions depend on a robust monitoring program, which is why you'll see that we do not take action every year. The second phase involves the Army Corps of Engineers. This is a one-time effort, although we are working with the Army Corps of Engineers to turn it into a multi-year effort to take a large quantity of sand from the San Francisco shipping channel, and instead of it being deposited offshore, we would have it placed onshore in this area that is experiencing chronic erosion. The good news is that even though it has taken many years to get to this point, we anticipate sand to be placed next summer in 2021. And lastly, the third phase, the long-term project, and the main focus of this notice of prep. To date, we've completed a needs assessment, our alternatives analysis, and the conceptual engineering report. We are currently working on 35% design. The major objectives of the project include adapting to climate change, protecting critical wastewater infrastructure, and improving public access and habitat. In order to meet those objectives and the conditions of the short-term permit for the Coastal Commission, these are some of the main components of the project. 1. Permanently close the Great Highway between Sloat and Skyline Boulevards and reconfigure affected intersections and the San Francisco Zoo access. 2. Remove pavement, rock and sandbag revetments, and rubble and debris from the beach. Recontour the bluff and plant dune vegetation. 3. Improve public access, maintain coastal parking, and continue to provide restroom facilities. 4. Install a buried wall to protect existing sewer infrastructure from shoreline erosion. And 5. Long-term beach nourishment. This graphic gives you a sense of how this area will change in order to meet these objectives. The permanent closure of the Great Highway between Sloat and Skyline will be a major change and will alter the flow of traffic at the intersections of Sloat, shown on the left side of your screen, and Skyline, shown on the right side of your screen. It will also change how people get in and out of the San Francisco Zoo. But the closure is necessary to provide the room needed to adapt to climate change while protecting existing infrastructure, maintaining access to the zoo, and creating open space amenities. This cross-section is from the conceptual engineering report and is focusing on the protection of the Lake Merced Tunnel, which is the focus of the SFPUC. But it also illustrates how we are achieving the open space area, the focus of Rec and Park. The main things I want to call to your attention are: 1, the location of the low-profile wall, the vertical gray bar, in relationship to the Lake Merced Tunnel, the circle. This is a very constricted workspace where we balance protection of the Lake Merced Tunnel versus creating a wider beach. For example, we can't build too close to the Lake Merced Tunnel, the circle, because we need to have sufficient space to place the tiebacks. 2, slope stabilization. The darker area above the LMT or the circle. The material on top of the LMT is part of what holds it in place, so we need to stabilize that area without disturbing that soil. 3, the area called managed retreat, the green bar at the top of the graph. This is the space where the Great Highway is currently sitting and will become open space. And 4, the restored area, the blue bar across the graph. This is the area where the revetments and the sandbags will be removed, in addition to the managed retreat zone, which when added together become the restored area or open space. And this is another view that shows both the below and above ground conditions and allows you to visualize what this area will look like from both of those vantage points. In addition to the protection of the Lake Merced Tunnel, we are developing open space and public access in coordination with Rec and Park. As you can see from this slide, we are balancing a lot of overlapping needs, which equates to a very complicated design in limited space. Monica Scott with Rec and Park will go over these aspects of the project following my presentation. As you can see, this is a complicated project with a lot of moving parts. We've made a lot of progress, but we still have a lot of work to do, as you can see from this anticipated timeline. That completes my portion of the presentation. But I do want to say thank you again for your interest in this project and for any comments that you provide as it relates to our CEQA analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. My name is Monica Scott, and I am the Recreation and Parks Department's project manager for the public access elements of this project. The components included in this project are a multi-use trail for pedestrians and bicyclists, a restroom, parking lot, and PUC access road. The photo on the slide shows the northern end of the planned trail entrance from Sloat, looking south along the Great Highway. Sloat is to the left and the ocean is on your right. This location is where we were planning for a plaza and restroom, as well as the connection point to the multi-use trail and the access road to the PUC structures. Here you can see the draft concept for the trail and access road layout, with trail connections between the Upper Great Highway Trail and the Fort Funston Lake Merced trails. This section of trail will be a part of the larger coastal trail network. To your left, on the northern end, you can see the plaza area, and on the southern end, there is the Skyline Coastal Parking Area. I will go into more detail about the parking lot in a later slide. You can see that there are 3 access points to the beach from the trail, with the northernmost at Sloat, one midway by the current access point to the zoo, and the southernmost in the vicinity of the coastal parking area. These are section views from the northern portion of the site. You can see the Lake Merced Tunnel and buried seawall running below the trail and dune buffer. At some points, the trail and access road will be adjacent, but for the most part, they will be separated by raised dune plantings. These are section views from the central portion of the site. In this area, you can see how the access road and multi-use trail will be separated by raised dune plantings. At the southern end of the trail, there will be the Skyline Coastal Parking Lot, which will be accessible from Skyline Boulevard. This parking lot will provide an access point for the multi-use trail and will also be the entry point for the one-way PUC access road. The trail in this area will connect with the Lake Merced Trail, and there is a planned related project to connect with the Fort Funston Trail network. Here is a section showing the various elements occurring in the parking area. The ocean is on your left, and you can see the dunes and existing vegetation adjacent to the multi-use trail. Then a planting buffer is between the trail and the parking lot. And lastly, there is a planting buffer between the parking lot and the combined service access road and parking lot access. This is an overview of the public outreach that RPD will be conducting for this project. We will be holding our first public community meeting this fall, followed by a second community meeting in the winter. And lastly, we will present this project to the Rec Park Commission as a discussion-only item. To receive updates from Rec Park about this project, you can sign up by following the link on the slide, http://bit.ly/updatemerpd, UPDATEMERPD. We will also be posting signs on site to notify people about the community meeting. Thank you for your time. Now, turning the presentation back over to Julie Moore.
The first step of the EIR process was the issuance of a notice of preparation of an EIR and notice of scoping meeting. We mailed this notice on September 9th and are requesting oral and written comments on the scope of the EIR by Friday, October 9th. The NOP is available on the Planning Department website sfplanning.org/sfsequadocs. That's SFCEQADOCS. We will host a virtual scoping meeting on September 30th, 2020, which will consist of this presentation followed by an opportunity for individuals to provide oral comments. This review period is your opportunity to provide early comments concerning the potential environmental effects of this project. Your comments should focus on significant environmental issues regarding this project and information that would help the environmental analysis. The Planning Department will consider the comments received during this 30-day period to inform the scope of the draft EIR. Please note that written responses to comments received during the EIR scoping period will not be prepared. The next step of the EIR process will be publication of the draft EIR, including initial study. Our current schedule anticipates that we will publish the draft EIR next summer. We will distribute a notice of availability of the draft EIR to interested parties. You will have an opportunity to provide input on the draft EIR during a 45-day public comment period, including at a public hearing at the Planning Commission. Following the close of the draft EIR comment period, the Planning Department will prepare a comments and responses document. This document will contain written responses to all substantive comments received during the draft EIR review period. It will also identify any changes to the draft EIR as necessary to fully respond to comments received. The comments and responses document will be distributed to those who commented on the draft EIR, various agencies, and other interested parties at least 10 days prior to a Planning Commission hearing on the final EIR. The final EIR will consist of the draft EIR together with the comments and responses document. The Planning Commission will consider whether to certify the final EIR as adequate, accurate, and objective. Certification of the EIR would not mean the project is approved or disapproved. Rather, it would only satisfy the CEQA environmental review requirements for the proposed project. Project approval or disapproval is a completely separate consideration from the adequacy of the EIR. Permits and approvals for the project would be required from numerous local, state, and federal agencies, including the Rec and Parks Department, the SFPUC, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, the California Coastal Commission, the National Park Service, among others. The Planning Department will replay this presentation at a video and teleconference scoping meeting on September 30th, 2020 at 6 p.m. You may attend the meeting using the video conferencing platform Zoom or by telephone. Again, the intent of the scoping meeting is for the Planning Department to hear from you regarding the environmental analysis for the project. You don't have to attend the scoping meeting to provide the Planning Department comments. You may also email your comments to cpc.oceanbeacheir@sfgov.org or mail your comments to me, Julie Moore, San Francisco Planning Department, 49 South Van Ness Avenue, Suite 1400, San Francisco, California, 94103 by October 9th. For details on how to register for the scoping meeting or to review the notice of preparation, please go to sfplanning.org/sfsequadocs. The Zoom meeting details are also shown on the screen. To request language services for the meeting, please contact candice.soohoo, that's SOOHOO, @sfgov.org or call 628-652-7550 at least 72 hours in advance of the meeting to ensure availability. Thank you and take care.